Hello, everyone. Dr. Ellison again, back with Foolish Things Part 2. Foolish Things Part 2 in this power moment. Well, we said yesterday that God wants man to rely upon his purposes, his plans, and his provisions that he's made available for human living. And when mankind gets to the point of figuring that, I don't need God's purposes. I'll change the purpose of nature, of natural things, the course of natural things. I'll change the family. I'll change the food. I'll change the man. I'll change the woman. We don't need God's purpose and God's ways. Then the Bible lets us know that God steps on the scene and says, I will confound the wisdom of the wise. I will destroy it. As a matter of fact, in 1 Corinthians, that it says, I will destroy it. Has he ever done it before? Do we have record of it? You bet. You better know it. Go back to the book of beginnings. Go back to the book of Genesis when they tried to build a tower without God. See, God doesn't have a problem with us doing things, but he wants to be involved. You don't exclude him. You don't make it seem like, I created myself. I create my own food supply. I create my the way people socialize. Oh, no, you don't diss God like that. So God says, when you start doing that, I will step in and I will do foolish things. I will do things that you will look at and say, that's impossible. There's no way that could be done. The only one who could do that would be God. And that's what he's doing. Yeah, right now, God is up to doing that kind of stuff, even in your life and in your circumstance. I want you to know that God's going to move with great power. I love what Isaiah 29:14 says. When it comes down to God confounding things, he said, I will proceed from man's wisdom, from man's limitations, from your limitations. I will proceed to do a marvelous work and a wonder in situations like yours and mine. And that's what he's doing. So we're talking about some foolish things. You see, it was foolishness for Jesus to tell professional fishermen who had fished all night, who had fished in the time to where you needed to fish in order to catch the fish. It was foolishness that after they had fished all night and they come to the daylight time for Jesus to tell them, now go back out. I know it's not the time, but just listen to my word, listen to my wisdom, do what I tell you, go back out. And God's going to have you and I go back out. Go back out in the time where the experts say it's impossible for you to catch fish in that time. And if you will obey God, you're going to catch in that awkward time what you never could have caught in the regular time. Because, see, God knows what he's doing. And he has the ability to do exceeding abundant, above and beyond all you and I could ask, think, or imagine. Go with God. Do what God tells you to do. Know it's God and do it. I don't care how weird it sounds. If he tells you to go start a television station and you don't even have a television, do it. That's what he told Pat Robertson. Go start a television station. And Brother Robertson said, didn't even have a television. The foolishness of God. And he's done that in so many cases, so many records, so many studies of God doing foolish things like that. But he told Peter to go back out and fish in the daylight hours, when fish don't usually position themselves, so to speak, for us to catch them. Go do it in that time. But the Lord already knew what was going to happen. He knew that those fish were going to be available because, see, when God tells us to do things, he's already made the arrangements. Look, the Bible even says that the works that you and I are called to, they were finished before the foundation of the world. So those fish had to position themselves to be caught by Peter and his partners. Foolish things. God trying to get the direction of Balaam. Instead of him sending somebody to give Balaam a word, he opens the mouth of the donkey. He causes the donkey to talk. foolish things. Come on, it wasn't customary for the donkey to be talking. Now, how would you like to drive up in your yard and the dog starts talking? He stops barking and he starts talking. Foolish things to show us that God still confounds the wisdom of the wise. Let's look at the fact that God used a woman. He used Mary Magdalene and those women around the tomb to go carry the message that Jesus had been raised from the dead. Now that was foolish. Why? Because in those days, a woman's testimony was not even accepted in court. But God uses a woman. Come on, while the men were off hiding somewhere, he uses a woman to go and give the good news that Jesus is no longer in the grave. Let me tell you something. There are people who would love to diss your testimony, but you testify anyhow because God knows what he's doing. Their testimony, women's testimonies, were not accepted in court. This is why you don't even see a whole lot written about what women did in the Old Testament. Not a whole lot. There's some cases, but not a whole lot in comparison to the men. What was God doing? Confounding the wisdom of the wise. And let me tell you something. Your testimony matters. What God has instructed you to do, what God has instructed you to say, it matters. It's going to do something in somebody's heart and life. So you go ahead and let God use you foolishly. You be one of those instruments in God's hand to where he releases to the earth his foolish acts. Now, why? I believe God wants mankind to come back to relying upon his purposes, his plans, and his provisions. And he says, all right, since you think you're wiser than what I provided, than what I made available, I will confound your wisdom. I will destroy your wisdom by doing a work and a wonder that baffles your rationale.